Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be showing you how to help a horse that's bucking with the saddle get to where they're finding relief being saddled and accepting that saddle better. Let's jump into it. So I'm here with Shogun. He's a 4-year-old, and he's my intern Kyle's horse. And we've been having some trouble with him where every time we saddle him, he wants to buck with a saddle. It's not terrible, he doesn't blow up with it, but he just humps around with it, and we can warm him up out of it and eventually ride him safely and that sort of thing. But we're wanting to get it better than that, to where we can just saddle him up and go. Now, we've made sure this wasn't a physical issue, and we've also experimented with changing saddles and pads, and we've experimented with that to see if maybe it was something with his scapula and where it was touching him, all that sort of thing, to make sure that wasn't the issue. And what we've landed on is that it's likely him feeling claustrophobic with the cinches. You know, and so a horse can buck with a saddle for various reasons, and there's a whole host of physical reasons they could be bucking. It could be the scapula, the shoulder rotating back, poor saddle fit, saddle pad they don't like, that sort of thing. But we're going to take the approach today of let's get him used to steady pressure and try to release him to being saddled. We're going to see if it's a better improvement. Now, we've warmed him up on the ground doing kind of things we normally do, but we haven't saddled him yet. So I'm going to play with him with the layer rope now as kind of our final stages before saddling him and see if that helps. So let's get started with it. So those of you that have been following my channel, you guys know I'm really big on getting a horse to follow a feel with steady pressure really well. See if we can get him to step into it there. And so the first place I'm going to test this on him with him is his hind leg. And this is a spot just above their hock that horses can be particularly protective of. So if you work with a young baby horse, they're really protective on their poll right behind their ears. They're really protective of their hind legs, and they can be really protective of their flank area. So these are all areas that I'm gonna look at here with the sleigh rope. So I'm gonna put a feel on it here. You can see we got a reaction. He's like not sure, but then he thought through it right there, and we'll release. So there I'm gonna so I tried to release him when he started to stop, but then he got tight again, and so that wasn't a great time to release. Now I'm gonna hold it again. I'm gonna wait a little longer this time, right there when he relaxes, and now I'll release it. And there you can see him shake his head. He's kind of letting his head down, had a little lick and chew. But you can see that did bother him a little bit. So that means we moved the needle. We were able to find that claustrophobic box in his brain and expose that and get him to come through it and be settled. So one of the things you have to understand is I don't have to have the saddle on for him to get into that I feel claustrophobic box, okay? This can happen when you put him into a horse trailer. It can happen when the farrier's got their leg up and they're working on him. It can happen them walking them through a narrow doorway. You know, it can be anything that, think of it like a box in their brain, that there's different things that put them in that box. And so this rope on a hind leg put him in that I feel claustrophobic box, just like the saddle does. So the premise is if I can expose him to that, going into that box and realizing that bucking with it doesn't equal relief, that settling, getting calmer, slowing down and relaxing equals relief, the idea is that he's going to get better and better at it. Okay, let's go ahead and turn him here. Now, the thing why the saddle is tough is it's not like if he stops bucking out in the circle, it's not like you can run up to him and loosen those cinches right away. I mean, I guess you could try, but essentially I'm not going to do it when I'm riding him. We're going to keep those cinches snug so the saddle doesn't roll. So the point is that with this lariat rope, I can give him instant relief and loosen it when he finds the answer. Okay, so that's why this works better than just saddling him and leaving him saddled and saying, oh, just deal with it. Which just isn't going to be all that effective anyways. And again, you know, there's probably a few of you that have trained 1 or 2 horses that you found a way to get it to work with just leaving a saddle on. But once you start training a lot of horses, you start realizing that certain horses have a hard time accepting that. And it's mostly because they feel claustrophobic. You know, it's not about the saddle. It's about him feeling claustrophobic. You know, and it's kind of interesting. I was talking to Kyle about this the other day. Some horses have trouble with going to different environments. Some horses have trouble handling, you know, rhythmic pressure where you bring your life up and put pressure on, whether that's a dog running by or a person being noisy or whatever it is. Some horses have trouble feeling claustrophobic. Some have trouble with all of the above. Those are the ones that end up being particularly difficult. So what's interesting with Shogun is he handles pressure really well. He handles new environments and obstacles really, really well. But this is the one thing that he's still kind of holding on to. And so what I'm getting at is if you can really learn how to diagnose and figure out exactly where the problem is coming from, you can get to where you're not chasing symptoms. Okay? Because if you made it just about the saddle, you'd be kind of chasing your tail around in circles. But if you can understand that he needs to get help feeling less claustrophobic in various situations, then you can find other ways to approach it more than just leaving a saddle on him for a long time. So let's do that hind leg rope again one more time, and then I'm going to move the rope to a different position. And the last position I'm going to finish with him on is having that rope kind of back here, not quite as a flank rope, but kind of back in that area. So put a feel on here. If you're interested in learning more about getting a horse to give to steady pressure with the rope, I have lots of videos of doing this with different horses that were really difficult with this on my Patreon page. So there'll be a link in the description below if you want to see those other horses getting some what I call rope therapy. And AKA, that just means getting them used to steady pressure. Steady pressure is just innately one of the most scary things to horses. So I went ahead and switched out to a rope line here, so it's easier for you to tell the difference between the two. But now I have this rope around his neck. Now if he pulls on it, it is going to tighten on him, okay? And so you would want to be careful. So what I'm showing you here, these are professional horse development strategies. This isn't something I'm saying everybody at home should go and try. I'm just sharing with you, a training session that I'm doing with this horse, and kind of bringing you guys in on it for a behind the scenes look here. So now what I'm going to do is run it between his front legs, and all I'm going to do is ask him if he can lower his head with this. So again, if you ever work with a little baby foal, one of the most common things you see happen is people put a halter on him right away, and they pull on the lead rope trying to get him to lead, and they rear up and flip over. Little baby foals. And the reason that this happens pretty regularly if a person doesn't know how to halter start a young horse, and we have a video coming up on that soon actually, the reason that happens is innately horses are really protective of this area right behind their poll, because if a predator was going to go after them, this is the area that they would go for. If you watch the National Geographic Channel with zebras in Africa and lions going after them, this is the area that they try to strike. And so it's just, horses are just built in as being defensive and protective of this area. That's why it's also easy to teach horses to pull back if you don't set it up right. So we got to be very aware of this, and we got to teach them to really follow a feel in a way that's very achievable and easy for that horse to accept. Otherwise you can run into teaching that horse to really resist that pressure. The next area that they're really protective of is this flank area, right? And then this hind leg here. And so those are just baby horses are just innately very fearful of things touching them. Or Mustangs. If you ever go work with a Mustang, you'll see they're very protective of those areas. A lot of times the first area that you can make contact with a Mustang with is sometimes this area by their withers. Usually this is an area that is easier to make contact with, and then also their nose. But actually the withers is usually the most typical. Sometimes it's the hindquarters, but this area is actually, on a young horse or a Mustang, is an easy place to get a starting point from. So, a little side note there. So now I'm going to put a feel on it here and see if I can ask him to just give and lower his head down there. So he's turning his head, which is fine, but I'm looking for that head to go down, not just turn. There it is. So I released when it just slightly went down, and then you saw him drop it even further than that. Okay, so go ahead and do that again. So put a feel. And you could do this in a round pen. I prefer to do this with a lead rope on as well, because I don't want things to get too Western here. So I can use that halter to control him more, because you don't have any control with this lariat rope setup. So put a feel on it, hold and wait. So there he's feeling a little bit tight, because he knows how to give to pressure. There it is. But this is just a particular harder one for him to give to. So let's try this at a walk here. I'm going to cluck a little bit to kind of keep him walking. Now, can you see how quickly he gives? And I had very little reaction. I'm going to move on from this right away, because I'm just not getting any brace there. So that means there's not really any area there that I'm going to improve and move the needle for saddling him, because he is pretty tame in those areas. And when I use the word tame, think about that means the horse is not going to their natural instincts, their natural prey animal instincts when they're tame. When they're not tame, that's when horses are going to be using their instincts to run away, flight from fear, resist pressure, push into pressure. If you get them, if you push the envelope too much, that's where a horse can turn defensive and start biting, kicking, that kind of thing too. But that's their last resort. Okay, so now we're going to go to the kind of the hard spot here. So we're going to build a big loop here, and we're going to let him walk through this loop. And then right after I get this loop, get him kind of tame with this area, the next thing we'll do is put that saddle on him straight away. There we go. Now, I'm not really wanting this to be a flank rope. I'm just kind of wanting this to represent the cinches on the saddle a little bit. So this would be more of a colt starting technique that I would use, to where I'm just going to pull on this and just expose him to that pressure. And we'll start it here and kind of work our way back. But this is a lot thinner rope than the cinches are. And so he's going to feel it a little bit more. The cinches ideally would be more comfortable. So again, the premise is we're going to try to release him. We're going to try to release him to being saddled. Okay, so go ahead and pull on it. Good, so we got no reaction whatsoever to this, which is great. So now that means we have a green light to go ahead and slide it further back. So I'm going to go ahead and move it a little bit further back there. Oh, there we got a reaction. So if we're getting a reaction with this is actually kind of a good thing, because this means that we can prepare him to release him towards that saddle. Good. Now there, he's moving forward, and that's the other thing. I want to release him on forward here, not standing still. Forward without bucking. So I'm going to go ahead and release it there. Let it kind of hang down, and then I'll put a feel on it again. Hold it. Now again, you can see it's not all the way back where it's not a flank rope, but it is pretty darn far back, more so than the back cinch. And that, because again, that's the idea, that I want to release him to that back cinch, because he feels claustrophobic. But the difference is, when he stops bucking with this, I can go ahead and release it right away. Now he doesn't feel anything there. Compared to that saddle, now it slid back a little too far. So if I pulled it tight there, it would be a flank rope, and that's let me get this around my spur. That's not what I'm going for. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and bring it forward there again. Oh, that was good. See, it's back there pretty far, no reaction that time. A little bit of reaction at the canter. Very good. You gotta watch your ropes here, make sure you're not stepping and getting tangled up in anything. Again, this is a professional technique. I don't recommend everybody go home and try this. I'm just sharing with you a strategy that we're using to help this horse hopefully accept the saddle a little bit better. Oh, again, it's getting kind of far back there. I don't want it to be a flank rope. Well, maybe I do, and we'll just have it be a light. Let's kind of tickle him a little bit with it. There we go. So that ended up being a little bit further back than I wanted, but I really just did not want to release on him when he was still reacting to it. So we'll go ahead and put it forward again. And I'm just going to do the one side today. Tomorrow we might do the other side. Very good. Good, so we'll go ahead and take that, and I'm going to go ahead and saddle him up kind of straight away right now, and we'll see if this was helpful. So you can see he's really relaxed for saddling here. He's in a good frame of mind to be saddled. We challenged him with some things, so hopefully it'll make this look a little easier. You can see he's licking and chewing, he's releasing, he's not associating the saddle with any sort of pressure. Now, I never tighten up the cinches really tight the first time I saddle a horse. I like to, you know, you could really teach them to not like to be saddled if you tighten them up right away. You know, no different than if you had somebody else putting your belt on for you in the morning and they just cranked that thing down as tight as they could get it. You might not appreciate that. So we're just gonna kind of let him have it on here, and I'll just kind of walk him out to where we're gonna circle, and then I'll tighten it up a little bit more. Because right now, if he went to buck in or running around, it could slide around on him, and I don't want it to slide. So we'll go ahead and tighten her up here a little more. Back cinch is good. Okay, let's give it a whirl. So I was doing the rope on him to the left, so we'll go ahead and start this to the left. We'll just let him wear it a little bit here. So a little bit of protest there, not too bad. Kind of ask him to canter here. Again, a little bit of a hunch there, not too bad. He's cross-firing in the hind leg, so he's a little bit amped up. There we go. Now what I'd really like him to do is blow out and have a big release. That'd be kind of what I'd be hoping for. I like that canter he's got working for him right there. I think he's wanting to blow out. We'll see if it's in there. Okay, let's go ahead and bend him down here. Just let him decompress here for a second, and then we'll go the other way. He just took a deep breath there. Just kind of wait on him here. So you can see he's getting more settled with the saddle, which is good. You know, he's not trying to trot off this time. Head went down. So now I'm going to ask him to trot. Kind of lead him into the canter here. Basically, I mean, I'm trying to lope him off just nice and soft. See if he can step into that lope without bucking. Really nice. So typically he is a little worse to the right than the left. And so that's part of why I went to the left first. And I would call this a success. This was, you know, it was better. He wasn't perfect with it. But I feel like we're on the road to a nice strategy here. Try that canter one more time. Make sure it wasn't an accident. But you can just see in his expression how relaxed he is in the lope there, where the head is at. We're trying to blow out right now. I can hear him making some noises. We'll just let him keep cruising here and see if he can find that blowout. There it is. So, because he blew out while cantering to the right, which was kind of the biggest bugaboo spot with him as far as accepting the saddle, I would consider that now to be a pretty huge win, pretty significant, because he relaxed and he found relief cantering to the right. So that was a really good setup. And I think you guys got to see kind of the difference there. So whatever it is that the rider, the human with the horse, whatever it is their goal is, it's just default for the horse to feel like whatever they're trying to do, load into the trailer, stand still to be saddled, canter off, do a lead, whatever it is, they're innately going to feel like the human is trapping them in that position. So it's our job to be playing chess with the horse and not tic-tac-toe. And what I mean by that is we need to be 2 steps ahead of them, and we need to release them towards the goal, not try to just power through and push them into the goal and just try to make them, you know, be in the position we want them in. Set it up ahead of time where you can release your horse to your idea, and the horse will get sweet on your idea. And not only will they do it, but they'll seek it. They'll want to do it. So hopefully this video helps. I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll see you guys on the next one.